Andrew Loney, joins us again now. Andrew, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure. I'll ask you about your speciality subjects in a minute, but did it raise your eyebrows that Prince Charles turns out to be such a bagman?
Yes, it did. I mean, we've really had a situation like this with Dumfries House. You know, he clearly has no judgment. He doesn't take the advice of people who are there to advise him. And I think it's not clear whether the Foreign Office knew about this or not. So it does raise all sorts of questions, but it means that we need greater scrutiny of the royal family, because if this is what we're discovering under present conditions, where there is a lot they can do to protect people finding out anything about them, then one wonders what else is going on. And it's only because of particular papers and programs that we're beginning to get the truth about some of their activities. My next book is on Prince Andrew. I'll be looking very closely at his role as a trade envoy and how far he was using that government role to line his own pocket, and indeed whether it was cover under the charitable activities of his wife that was used to line her pocket. Because I think these are very serious things. We pay a lot for the royal family. We look up to them. We expect them to behave properly and with good judgment and with honesty. And I have to say, the headlines today are a particularly low point in the history of the monarchy.
Well, thank God for Gabriel Pogrund. His mother is a great friend of mine in South Africa, though I haven't seen her for many years. And thank God for the Sunday Times, and I don't often say that. The Sunday Times has now revealed 2 lots of 1 million plus donations from, in one case, a questionable source, and in the other, an outrageous source. It's questionable whether you should accept £1 million in cash in paper bags from the absolute monarchy in Qatar. You could make a case for it, but it's questionable, and the provenance and the method is questionable. But for someone to imagine in 2013 that they could take a secret donation of more than £1 million from the Bin Laden family, well, this is berserk.
Well, let's hope that perhaps as a result of this, there's more openness and transparency about royal finances. You know, we of course know that royal wills are sealed. They reveal very little about their finances. And I think, you know, if Charles is to make the transition to be king, I think he has to declare at this point that he's going to be much more open about his charitable foundations. I think it's very interesting. If you look at the trustees, they're all part of a very close-knit group. There's very little independence there. They're all part of the same little coterie. And I think we need to have outsiders looking at this, proper regulation. And I think we also need to get rid of Section 37 of the Freedom of Information Act, which basically gives a get-out-of-jail-free card to the royal family and avoids them having to reveal anything. One of the things I found in my great campaign for the Mountbatten Diaries was that any reference to a member of the royal family under the Section 37 can be deleted, even though it may be 100 years old, even though Prince Harry is writing his own book and is collaborating with people to write books about the present royals and present things. So I think it's shocking. It's like living in a banana republic, that we as historians cannot get access to documents about the past, and when that's been curated by PR people working for the royal family.
Well, a banana republic with no bananas and no republic. That's a sorry pass. It was transparency that led you to lose, I think I can say, painful to hear, I'm sure, £400,000 and more to get access to diaries that the public had already paid for the purpose of the public getting access. You won your case, but the government spent millions resisting you, again, of our money, and yet you won the case and don't get your costs. How does that work?
Well, I have to say I've lost slight faith in the legal system. I don't know what happened there, because 30,000 pages, some 99.8% of the material was released. In fact, before the hearing, This was material bought 10 years ago, and without this campaign would never have seen the light of day. It was also bought under the acceptance and lieu scheme, in which one of the criteria is, of course, it is open to the public. And I think one of the shocking things for me was that the Cabinet Office have lied continually over the last 10 years about this material. They've lied to Parliament, to the media, and indeed to the courts about this. They are actually refusing to give the exact costs of this litigation, which they brought against me after the Information Commissioner ruled this material should be made available, which is again rather concerning. There's also a very important new collection, or old collection, bought at the same time. This is the correspondence between Nehru and his lover, Edwina Mountbatten. The Southampton only need to spend £100 to release the option and release this material. They're refusing to do so. They're refusing to explain why they haven't done so. And I think this is part of my new campaign. I'm working hard to try and get this 450,000 reimbursed because, as you say, I succeeded in my aim. The material was released. The behavior of the Cabinet Office in Southampton was unreasonable. They, in fact, had the unprecedented distinction of having the Information Commissioner bring contempt of court proceedings against them, which had never happened before. There were 8 information notices about them, forcing them to answer questions from my lawyers. So it's a pretty sorry state of affairs. And I think the sad thing is that the courts did not really recognize this story. And I'm still appealing for my costs, though I don't have a great deal of hope that I'll recover them. But I've moved on. My book came out several years ago, but I felt it was an important issue about censorship and about the freedom of speech. And also it was important that this collection should be available to the public. And I'm trying to raise some money through crowd justice to try and at least pay the remaining 50,000 of the bill that I haven't been able to settle so far. But it is frightening if historians are basically...
I hope the audience... Yeah, I hope the audience rally to your side on that one, Andrew. What were they trying to cover up? Why did they spend millions of pounds to suppress the information you were looking for?
I'm afraid it's face-saving. I mean, I'd like to say they were covering up Prince Philip's peccadillos, which the Mirror suggested today. But I think the truth is that they were caught telling lies. They had to continue. And even the redactions that they've insisted on are often material already in the public domain. The diaries of Mountbatten, many of them were actually published 40 years ago. And this material has also been copied into other books, particularly memoirs by other members of the Mountbatten family. So the government, for example, said that we would jeopardize our relations with India and Pakistan if a one-word reference in Lady Mountbatten's diary 75 years ago to Jinnah was released. They've covered up the identity of an organization called P that operated during the Second World War, which is extremely well known because under grounds of national security. This is the culture of secrecy that I'm afraid historians are having to battle against, and which I hope citizens will begin to make waves about, because unless people, MPs, and indeed historians and the general public make a fuss, more and more of our civil liberties will be eroded.
Now, let's turn to our traitor king, the king that was, and who thereafter collaborated with our enemies. Your book on this, I've not yet myself read it, but I'm told that it's brilliant. Tell us about it, please.
Well, the book really makes the case, I think, pretty conclusively, and the critics have agreed, that the Duke of Windsor was not an innocent duke of the Nazis, but a stooge for them. He was quite prepared to negotiate with them in the summer of 1940 with a view to coming back as a puppet king. He sent messages to them in code, even when Churchill had threatened him with court-martial and sent him off to the Bahamas as governor, that he was prepared to come back. He had a whole series of very unfortunate close friendships with Nazi agents, ranging from a man called Charles Beddoe, who lent him his chateau for the Duke's wedding, through to a Swedish industrialist called Axel Wennergren. And this is based on archival research around the world. I'm afraid the archives here have been weeded, so you're not going to find it here. but private diaries, archives, for example, in the Bahamas, in Spain, in Russia, in Portugal, Secret Service reports, because he was under surveillance by both the FBI, the Portuguese, the French, and the British. His own special protection officer was reporting back to Special Branch about him. And it's pretty clear that he was disloyal to his country. People were executed for far less than he did. The whole story was covered up after the war when captured German documents showed the extent of his treachery. Churchill tried to have the material destroyed, but they had been discovered by the Americans, who passed them to American historians, and the historians insisted that this material should be published. But the British still managed to keep the whole thing quiet until 1957. I think one of the sad things is that many of these files continue to be destroyed. The Special Branch files on him, his father had put him under surveillance from MI5. Only one file was released in 2004 after the Queen Mother died. All the others were destroyed. And one just wonders how many other files that prove embarrassing to the government or to the royal family are destroyed with no record being kept. We have a Public Records Act which requires this material to be placed in public records for people to look at. And I'm afraid that is being abused and has got worse under the present government.
I've asked you this before, but given all you know, and in fact, all you've told us, how can you still cling to your faith in monarchy and in this royal family in particular?
Well, I may be an optimist. I'm a great believer that the monarchy is a good system. And as you say, we have the Queen and others who have been absolutely wonderful. So I'm only really dealing with the rogue royals, the Prince Andrews and the Duke of Windsor's and others. But the more I research royal biography, I have to say, the less I become a monarchist. And I think, public opinion certainly is changing. If people like me are disillusioned with the monarchy, then they really do have problems.
By the way, in my counterfactual historical novels, the Queen's Way series, the Duke of Windsor does come back, and Queen Wallis does sit on the throne in Buckingham Palace. But, spoiler alert, it doesn't end well for them. Andrew Loney, thank you as always for joining us on the Mother of All Talk Shows.